There's a theme for today's show, and it is about underrated Washington Nationals. And there are also some underrated free agents. I'm going to give you one of those later on. But in 2024, who is the most underrated Washington National? I'll tell you that after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm Ryan Clary, your host of Locked On Nationals. You can catch us over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube for the video portion there. Hit that subscriber button while you're at it. Wherever you get your pods, that's where you'll find Locked On Nationals. Later on in today's program, we will get into a free agent who I actually see as a pretty real possibility. I'll tell you who that is in the third segment. He is an underrated player, and I will say he hits home runs and he plays first base. I'll tell you that a little bit later on in today's program. In the second segment, we are getting into underrated Nationals needs entering 2025. We talk about first base. We talk about starting pitching. But what are some other areas where the Nationals do need help? One in particular, I think, has kind of flown under the radar. I hinted at it the other day for this Locked On Nationals podcast, but we're going to get into that here in the second segment of today's program. But we start off with discussing underrated Nats entering 2025 and really from this past season. But before that, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started with this. Who were some underrated Nationals players? I've got one positional player. I've also got one pitcher. My pitcher, I want to start off with first because I think he is the most overall underrated National star. It's Jose A. Ferrer. Left-handed pitcher coming out of the bullpen, really young, really vibrant, and he's got nasty stuff. I think Jose Ferrer, going into 2025, will be one of, if not your best Nationals reliever. And numbers actually do back that up. Number one, he's got the stuff. This year, he has a 4-pitch mix. 3 pitches what he uses really mainly, but he threw his sinker 59% of the time. He threw his changeup 19% of the time. His 4-seamer 17% of his time, and his slider at 5% of the time. Now, when looking at those pitches, his sinker rides about 98, similar to his fastball. His changeup sits about 88, and his slider also at 88. A 10-mile-per-hour difference between the fastball and his off-speed pitches. Number one, right then and there, having that pitch usage kind of in different situations, you saw it in a very effective way this year. And what does that lead to? Well, in Jose Ferrer's case, it led to a lot of ground balls. His ground ball percentage in 2024 was some of the highest in all of baseball. Upper 90th percentile. That is how good Jose Ferrer was keeping on the ball on the ground. His fastball velocity, 97th percentile. His chase percentage, well above 50%. Jose Ferrer, if you look at the numbers that really kind of identify what kind of season that he had, forget the ERA. Forget what he was doing earlier on in 2024. Rehabbing from an injury, took some time to get back. But once that second half hit, and once he got called back up, and once he got in the rhythm of things, Jose Ferrer was probably our best relief pitcher outside of like Derek Law and Kyle Finnegan. But even then, sitting here going forward, Jose Ferrer has the highest, in my opinion, ceiling as far as the Nationals relievers go. He is nasty, disgusting. He doesn't walk guys. He doesn't get bat on ball too often. His hard hit percentage is a pretty low percentile, but still, the barrel percentage is well into the 90th percentile. His walk percentage, right around the 90th percentile. His chase percentage, above 50th. His expected ERA, into the 90th percentile. Looking at Baseball Savant, now he was not qualified, but still, his fastball played this year, well above 50th percentile. His breaking run value, pretty much above 50th percentile there as well. All the preliminary numbers that you necessarily can't see with your naked eye were all there for Jose Ferrer. This is going to be a mainstay in your Nationals bullpen going forward. This is going to be one of the guys who will be in the 8th inning of your Nationals, hopefully postseason run someday in a close ball game. And you're going to be hoping Jose Ferrer comes in, and he will come in, and he will shut the door. That is how good of a season. That's how good of a pitcher this guy is coming in later on in the games. Now, I don't know where exactly he lines up. Will he be an 8th inning guy? Will he be a closer? I don't think he's going to be a closer or any of those because he's not really blowing guys away. But he still generated a lot of swings and misses on his fastball. And ultimately, this guy was the most underrated Washington National, in my opinion. Now, second, which positional player was underrated? Well, this one was a little bit harder, in my opinion, because Jose Ferrer is my guy. That was an easy one to pick. But going forward, I was like, who's underrated? Is it Luis Garcia Jr.? Is it CJ Abrams? It's not Keibert Ruiz. So I landed on Jacob Young. And the reason why I say that, well, number one, we all know about his ability to play defense. It is impossible to take out Jacob Young from the center field spot at this point. He was a Gold Glove finalist, in my opinion, was the best center fielder in all of baseball this year defensively. And it's tough to take that guy out of center field. You know his defensive ability. Let's put that to the side. Let's get to the offense now, though. As far as Jacob Young goes, he wasn't stout offensively this year. But also the numbers don't really tell the whole story. He was a lot better offensively than what the numbers say. A sub 700 OPS, a sub 32% on-base percentage. The guy wasn't really getting hits. But here's the thing about Jacob Young. He is so good defensively that if you put this guy in a situation where he's batting ninth and he can get on base at around a 34% clip, this is now a legit professional baseball player, like a Kevin Kiermaier type. Someone who's stout defensively and who will just get the job done as your ninth man. I think that is what Jacob Young could be. Now, again, I've kind of gone back and forth with this because we all know this. Nationals are loaded with outfielding prospects. They have money to spend. I would like to see them go out and add in the outfield, similar to what they did with Jason Worth before that 2011 season. Get a veteran in the clubhouse. There's a lot of different guys out there. Anthony Santander, Juan Soto. There are guys the Nationals could go after. But Jacob Young, I'm not saying you're going to keep Jacob Young and not sign Juan Soto if that was ever a possibility. That's not. You'll move off Jacob Young quite easily for Juan Soto. But as far as like the Nationals prospects go, you're not in a rush for Robert Hassel at this point. Robert Hassel has been in the system basically as long as Jacob Young at this point. And Robert Hassel is still down in AAA. And he's got a lot more ability than what Jacob Young has. Now, he hasn't shown it, but still, Hassel has the higher ceiling. He's not as good as a defender, but he's still a well above average center fielder. And that left-handed bat, at times, it can provide some power. And ultimately, his bat is better, in my opinion. But again, I come back to Jacob Young's defense. And if you can make some slight adjustments to where Jacob Young is getting on base at a 34% clip, this is someone who will steal 40 bases for you, play great center field, be a great clubhouse guy as well. I've talked to him plenty of times. Couldn't be a nicer guy. Jacob Young is one of those guys where he could be a glue piece to this team. And whether I want to admit it or not, like I would like to see the Nationals make an upgrade as far as the outfielders go. But Jacob Young, it's going to be hard to move off him. And I do think overall he is underrated. And some of the reasons why I think he's underrated is because of just how good he is defensively and how close he is to getting there to where I'd say, okay, if he can get on base and have like a 700 OPS and hit for more extra base hits, he's not going to hit for more power. We know that. He's going to steal 40 plus bases. He's going to stay healthy and be great in center field. If he can do all those things now, it's a lot, then I think the Nationals have a glue piece moving forward. But again, those are big ifs. Can he make the adjustments? Can the Nationals help him make the adjustments? Is also another question that we'll have to tackle sometime soon. But still, going forward, he's one of the underrated Nationals alongside Jose Ferrer. But again, I want to reiterate this. Jose Ferrer, if you are just a casual fan, which is fine, you can be a casual fan. We welcome you here. Keep an eye out for that name. He is going to be your stud out of the bullpen in 2025. I promise that. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's tell you guys about this. Underrated Nats needs entering 2025. This is going to get weird, but I will say this one thing is really irking me, to say the least, because we saw one go the other day, and I think it's time for the Nationals to pounce on someone who could help in this area. I'll discuss that after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, guys, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Again, download America's #1 sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Later on in today's show, I've got a interesting free agent that I want you to keep your eye out for the Washington Nationals. Could they be going after this potential first baseman? I'll tell you that in the third segment of today's program, so stay tuned. Later on, you'll want to hear it. But now we get into some underrated Nationals needs. And yes, today's show is about underrated needs and as well as underrated Nats. But now we get to the needs portion here. My #1 underrated need is a backup catcher. Going into this, #1, I just think we need someone who will be there and to help Keibert Ruiz. I think at this point in time, you've got Caleb Lomavita down in the minors. He's kind of a project at this point. Other than that, there's not much hope as far as catchers go. Drew Millis is fine defensively. He gets the job done. He's certainly better defensively than Keibert Ruiz. But I don't think that's really going to push Keibert as much. You need a veteran guy. And the veteran guy that I wanted, that I was certainly going to be talking about here soon, was Travis d'Arnaud. Travis d'Arnaud just signed a 2-year deal with the LA Angels. But I think going forward, this offseason, one of the needs the Nationals will have to address is Carson Kelly for the free agent for the Texas Rangers. Carson Kelly is stout defensively, well above average defensively. And you might be asking, well, Ryan, you care about offense so much. Why are you bringing up the defense factor? Well, Keibert Ruiz is probably the worst defensive catcher in the major leagues. He is certainly in that conversation. Keibert Ruiz is not good defensively. This is a track record at this point. He's not good at framing. His pop time's pretty low. And again, he just does not get the job done. Keibert Ruiz signed a 6-year, $50 million extension before 2023. I think at this point in time, over the last 2 seasons, I have been encouraged rather than discouraged, or discouraged rather. Geez, I just sneezed there. Live on camera, that's fun. But I have been discouraged overall with the way that he has performed. That's just the way that it is. I think at this point in time, though, the Nationals, they should go after a Carson Kelly type. Someone who is elite defensively and who's had some decent offensive seasons in the past with the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's not the sexiest signing out there, but you need to have pressure on Keibert Ruiz to push him to play better, to push him to be a better defender, and also just to simply be there and help out a veteran kind of case at this point with Keibert. He is still the future defense or for the catcher position at this point. But you also, it's getting to that point where you need to apply pressure to him and have someone in this organization that can help him out. Because at this point in time, you can't tell me that you have all the faith in the world in Keibert Ruiz. I certainly don't. And honestly, I don't think the Nationals do either. Because you saw it the way that it was this season. He did get better in the second half after having the flu, miss a couple weeks, drop some weight there. But also, inconsistency has just poisoned Keibert's career at this point in time. When is it not going to be there? I don't know. That is one of my underrated Nationals needs entering 2025. And I think it's going to be an interesting one because, again, the Nationals can easily do this. This should not be that hard, but we'll see what they end up doing. Second one, not really that underrated. Who's going to play third base for the beginning of this season? Jose Tena, I think, is probably going to be that answer. But still, what's going to happen other than that? At this point, you have Brady House, but wouldn't you like to get a veteran corner infielder here at some point in time? Whether it is a first baseman or even a third baseman, I don't know at this point, but Jose Tena showed flashes of ability this past year. I do think Jose Tena has a chance to be a legit building block with this team. He's young. He's really good at the plate. But defensively, he was not getting the job done. I think the Nationals could go for like a Nick Senzel type yet again, just to see and get them in the building and kind of have that competition going in spring training. But Jose Tena, he would be my answer, but also, do the Nationals want to go after a veteran to try to catch lightning in a bottle, similar to what they did with Jeimer Candelario just 2 seasons ago? That's kind of the point that I think the Nationals want to go with moving forward. So that's one of my other underrated needs for this Nationals team. Last but not least, back into the bullpen. This, in my opinion, if you are doing this segment, underrated needs, overrated needs, needs in general, back into the bullpen will always be an answer. You need bullpen help. You traded away Hunter Harvey. You traded away Dylan Floro. We talk about Jose Ferreira. I think he's going to be a mainstay in this bullpen moving forward. But Kyle Finnegan, I'm not 100% sure about him. I know he was an all-star, but again, I think if your team is in October, I'm not necessarily trusting Kyle Finnegan to go out there in a 1-run lead to close out the game. I think the Nationals need to address this offseason. That could come in the form of a Zach Brixey, who is coming off Tommy John. You saw him a little bit up in the bigs. He got rocked around, though. And ultimately, you don't necessarily know what he's going to be at this point. He used to be a flame-throwing right-handed pitcher, but at this point, I can't trust in that. I think the Nationals need to go out this offseason, whether it's via trade, whether it's claiming someone off waivers, similar to what the Orioles have done in years past, and they've found plenty of talent through the waiver wires. But the Nationals, they need to address the back end of the bullpen. And I don't know how that's going to come, whether it's free agency, whether it's trades, whether it's through their own system, where they find someone that they think can help them up at the major league level in 2025. But if the plan for you, meaning the Nationals, is to compete in 2025, you have to have bullpen help. This bullpen is not going to get the job done with the way that it is sitting here today. It needs help. That is an underrated need for for the Washington Nationals entering 2025. Next, I'm going to tell you guys about an underrated free agent who I think is a legit possibility for this Nationals team. But before we get into it, I'm going to tell you guys about our friends over at Select Quote in the World Series, Super Bowl, and of course the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Select Quote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. Well, Select Quote's exclusive policies can reward that effort, and these policies are more affordable than you think. You can get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Head to selectquote.com, and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. So get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Now we get back into it with an underrated free agent for the Washington Nationals to track this offseason. I've told you about Pete Alonso. We've talked about Christian Walker. We've mentioned Corbin Burns, and of course we have talked about Juan Soto. Those guys aren't underrated. And again, the Nationals, over the last few seasons, they have not been shopping in the big aisle sale with the name brands. They have been going with the grocery store brands, the Giant brand, the Safeway brand, which is fine. They can be good. It could be Jeimer Candelario. It could be, decent players. I think this player kind of fits in that Giants brand stuff. The name is Carlos Santana. You know him. He is an elite defender over at first base, a left-handed bat who won the Gold Glove Award this past season, has hit 23 bombs each of the last 2 seasons, has been a mainstay in Major League Baseball for the last decade. Carlos Santana, he's kind of one of those names you don't really track too much, but I would not be surprised if the Nationals try to go this bucket over at first base and hope to God that a Yohandy Morales comes up, plays solid at first base eventually in the future. Brady House on the opposite side of the corner there, and maybe the Nationals find their solution and they pair Santana up with Juan Yepez, and who knows what kind of hybrid first base position we could go with. But sitting here today, the Nationals knew, while I want them to go after a Pete Alonso type because of his bombs, he's not good defensively. Carlos Santana is great defensively coming off a Gold Glove season, and also he's good for 20-plus home runs per season. That's going to help you, maybe not as much offensively as a Pete Alonso type or even a Christian Walker, but still, I could see the Nationals kind of going in this category if you miss out on a Pete Alonso, if you miss out on a Christian Walker, and also let's say you miss out on Anthony Santander, who will get a pretty big contract. Let's say they're shopping in that. Then I think the fourth option for the Nationals would be a Carlos Santana type. All eyes in this offseason. At this point, it does seem as if the Nationals will spend more money and that they will be kind of a big fish and hopefully a little pond as far as first basemen go. But years past, we've thought the same thing, and they haven't gotten the job done just yet. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight with the Commanders. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.